HOA fined me $30,000 for a cabin I bought outside their area now. They're leaders in court. I had just moved into the cabin. I had spent years dreaming about a quiet escape tucked into the edge of the forest. Far from city noise and neighborhood drama, it wasn't part of any development, let alone a homeowners association. The deed was clear, the property lines were verified, and every bit of paperwork said the same thing. I was outside any HOA jurisdiction. For 2 peaceful weeks it felt like paradise. Then one morning I found a white envelope taped to my gate. "Welcome to the community," it said, cheerfully printed on top. Inside was a bill for $30,000. My eyes scanned the page. There were itemized charges for everything, from so-called unapproved landscaping to community security assessments and past unpaid dues. I read it twice, then a third time. It was just one problem. None of this applied to me. The HOA didn't govern this land. The closest HOA-controlled street was over half a mile away. Still, I gave them the benefit of the doubt and called the number listed. A woman answered, her tone clipped and rehearsed. I explained the situation and pointed out that my address was outside their boundaries. Her response? "If you enjoy the neighborhood benefits, you need to pay your share." I couldn't believe what I was hearing. What benefits? My gravel road was maintained by the county. Trash pickup was part of my city utilities. Those security patrols they mentioned? I'd never seen a single car or officer since I moved in. It was a reach no, a scam. I asked them to send legal documentation proving their claim. She brushed me off and said, "You'll be hearing from collections if you don't comply." That was the moment I realized this wasn't a clerical mistake. It was a deliberate move. I started researching. I pulled up county zoning maps, tax records, and even old HOA filings. Everything confirmed what I already knew I wasn't in. Their district never had been, and never agreed to any terms. Still, the HOA continued sending threats, late fees stacking by the week. A lien notice casually slipped under my door. They were acting like they owned land that didn't belong to them, enforcing rules they had no right to impose. And they were counting on me being too scared or uninformed to fight back. But they picked the wrong person. I wasn't about to pay $30,000 for nothing, especially not to an organization that had zero legal claim over me. I called an attorney. If they wanted a fight, they were going to get one and this time, in a courtroom where real laws, not fake fines, decide the outcome. I wasn't the type to back down, especially when something smelled this wrong. After getting nowhere with phone calls and threats from the HOA, I decided to take the fight to facts. I drove straight to the county recorder's office and asked for every single record connected to my property. Going back 20 years? What? I found was exactly what I expected, proof in black and white. My cabin was fully and legally outside of the HOA's reach. No covenants, no easements, no contractual agreements. I wasn't just not a member. I'd never even been in consideration. My land was its own, sovereign and separate. But that didn't stop the HOA from doubling down on their campaign of intimidation. A few days later, I walked out one morning to see something new pinned to a tree right at the edge of my driveway. Bright red lien notice, laminated, bold, and threatening. They were now claiming legal rights to seize my property over delinquent dues I never owed in the first place. It was the last straw. I called a real estate attorney that same day and showed him everything: the notices, the deed, the map overlays, even screenshots of emails I had exchanged with HOA reps. His reaction said it all. This wasn't just civil overreach, it was potentially criminal. He filed a formal cease and desist letter within 24 hours, demanding the lien be withdrawn and any mention of collections cease immediately. We gave them 72 hours to comply. But instead of backing off, they delivered another letter this time, hand-delivered and notarized, stating they had what they called grandfather rights over the land due to historical utility. It was total fiction and easily disproven, yet they were counting on me not knowing that. What they didn't count on was what happened next. A week into our legal battle, I got an unexpected call from my attorney. Kay's former HOA board member had reached out to him after seeing coverage in a local property rights newsletter. She'd resigned 6 months earlier and wanted to talk. We met at her request in a quiet diner outside town. She told us everything. how the current president had been deliberately pushing false HOA boundary maps for years, claiming more and more landowners into the HOA without due process. It was all about the money. More members meant more dues meant bigger. Discretionary budgets for the board money that often went unaccounted for. She gave us copies of internal emails, altered maps, even recordings of board meetings where they joked about reeling in the outliers. That changed everything.
Oh.
It wasn't just about getting a lien lifted. It was about exposing fraud, deception, and illegal financial manipulation. The fight had officially escalated. I was ready to take it all the way. The moment we filed the lawsuit, everything changed. What had started as an isolated battle over my own cabin quickly turned into a wildfire of public interest. Local news stations caught wind of the story, especially after we exposed the fake grandfather rights claims and the altered maps. Within days, headlines blared across TV screens and websites: HOA accused of fraud and extortion, cabin owner fights back against fake fines, and boundary scam exposed by lone property owner. I walked into court not just with my attorney, but with a sense that this was no longer just about me. People in the gallery whispered as we passed by, reporters scribbled notes, and the judge, an older, sharp-eyed man, looked like he'd seen far too many similar cases swept under the rug. But this one wasn't going to disappear. My attorney opened with a clean, methodical presentation of the evidence. Certified county zoning maps, an uncontested deed showing my cabin well outside, HOA jurisdiction, and GPS overlays marking the exact coordinates. The judge leaned in more and more as each exhibit was presented. Could see the disbelief shifting into anger. Then came the turning point. During cross-examination, the HOA treasurer, visibly nervous, was asked a simple question. Have you ever collected dues from properties not legally under your association? There was a pause. A long one. Then, under oath, he admitted they had. Not just mine, but dozens. They'd been sending out false notices for years, banking on fear and ignorance, but it didn't stop there. My lawyer pushed harder, and suddenly the dam broke. The treasurer admitted that the HOA president had instructed the board to expand the map to increase revenue. The extra funds weren't used for community maintenance. They went into a private discretionary fund, hidden from members. We showed the judge email chains, meeting recordings, even financial records obtained by subpoena. Tens of thousands of dollars had been spent on personal vacations, luxury furniture for the president's home, and even contributions to a local political campaign. The courtroom was silent. Then the judge spoke. His words were firm and final. This board has not only violated public trust, but engaged in organized deception for personal gain. A full financial audit was ordered immediately. Arrest warrants were issued for the HOA president and 2 senior board members. Fraud, forgery, and misappropriation of funds charges that could carry serious prison time. As for me, the lien on my cabin was not only removed, but declared fraudulent. The court issued a public notice, clearing my name and affirming my property's exemption from any HOA control. I walked out of that courthouse not just relieved, but victorious. And I knew in that moment the fight had been worth every minute. What they tried to use against me had become the very thing that exposed them. And justice, real justice, was finally being served. After the courtroom dust settled, the ripple effect was immediate and massive. The judge had not only cleared my name, but issued a permanent injunction against the HOA, strictly forbidding them from trying to enforce rules beyond their officially registered boundary ever again. Their false authority was stripped away in one clean legal stroke. But the consequences didn't end there. News of the trial spread through the community like wildfire, and homeowners who had long suffered in silence suddenly found their voices. Families who'd paid thousands in fake fees came forward. People who had been threatened with liens or fines without justification finally realized they weren't alone. Class action lawsuit began forming almost overnight, spearheaded by victims who had been bullied for years but never had the evidence or courage to take a stand until now. The HOA board resigned en masse. The president, now facing criminal charges, tried to disappear from public life, but the damage was done. Their empire, built on fraud and intimidation, crumbled. By order of the court, the HOA was dissolved. Their assets were frozen, their bank accounts audited, and their operations completely shut down. Meanwhile, I returned to my cabin, finally able to breathe in the peace I'd been chasing since day one. No more notices, no more threats, no more trespassing agents pretending to have power they never legally held. My cabin stood as more than just a personal escape now. It had become a quiet monument to resistance. One afternoon, maybe a month later, I heard a knock at the door. It was a couple from a few lots down the dirt road. They were older, kind-eyed, and carried a basket of homemade preserves. They said they'd lived there for over 15 years and had been harassed by the HOA for nearly as long. Every year it was something new: paint colors, mailbox height, parking their trailer in the wrong direction. They'd paid out of fear, and they thought they were the only ones. But after seeing the story on the news and watching it unfold in court, they realized someone had finally stood up and won. They just wanted to say thank you. That moment hit me harder than any victory in court. It reminded me that sometimes we assume peace means staying quiet and keeping your head down. But real peace comes from justice, when truth is spoken, when lies are exposed, and when power is returned to the people who deserve it. I didn't just get my land back. I helped dozens of others reclaim their dignity and their rights. That red cabin in the woods, once seen by a crooked HOA as easy prey, now stood as a warning to any bully with a fake badge. You come with lies, you leave with lawsuits, and for the first time in a long time, the woods felt truly silent in the best possible way.